Hi, my name is Jeremy Sykes. I'll be doing a talk on Wolfram Media and book tools. I work for Wolfram Research, and I'm a publishing assistant. All right, well, welcome to the Wolfram Media presentation. For anybody who was here last year, obviously Andre was running it then, and he's here to make sure I don't get anything wrong. So, what are we doing with Wolfram Media? What does it mean? Why are we publishing under this? Okay, I am Jeremy Sykes. I am the publishing assistant. Effectively, I am the project manager for Wolfram Media and Wolfram Media related things that we do. And that is mostly publications, but it also includes some legal issues and also some author relations. So essentially what we want to do here is to promote the use of the Wolfram language. That is what we're looking for when we consider submissions. I'll get into a little bit about that later. We also publish Stephen's books, of course, and that's in large part because we have an attention to detail that suits exactly what Stephen wants. So it has worked well as a partnership there. One thing I want to highlight here, and we'll get into this more, is that the more you can bring to us in terms of your abilities to code, the more we can give back. We have lots of resources that the company can offer, but development strength is reserved for development and research, R&D here. So that is one thing that I wanted to get out there right now. All right, so just to give an idea from Stephen's perspective, he's working on a variety of books. They're all under wraps. We want to make sure that he's got complete freedom to play around. He will be publishing a series of smaller EPUBs through this year. And also, his book from earlier, the second edition for EIWL was published in 2017. That's Elementary Introduction to the Wolfram Language. And we had it translated to Chinese last year. This year, into Korean. That is set for publication maybe by the end of the year, probably January of 2018. We also are having it in Japanese, Spanish, and Indonesian. Those are all deals in the works. So yeah, exciting things for translations of Stephen Wolfram. So, yes.
Try magnifying just one step. That should help folks a little bit. I think that's probably enough. Concentrate around the screens.
Yeah, can you guys see? Yeah. All right. So we've got a few projects that we are working on right now. One of them is programming the Raspberry Pi with the Wolfram language. And you probably saw Ian Johnson's presentation downstairs, not his presentation, but he's got a couple of computers and Pis set up, and he's been working with them. He is working with us as a technical reviewer for this book and helping us get through it. I think it'll be an exciting thing. One of the things I really hope to do is to promote this book to the maker community, which is really growing in strength. So I think a lot of the maker community knows that the Pi comes with the ability to use the Wolfram language, but I think a lot of people still are not using it, and that's one of the main reasons for this book. We want to change that. And then, of course, we have an author in the room with us right now. That's Barry Dayton. I'm going to take a quick departure from my outline here because he has to run. I'll show you what he's been up to. You probably, if you went to his talk earlier, you may have seen some of his fascinating curves. So yeah, that's going to be a book for programming algebraic curves in the Wolfram language. That is obviously what we're focusing on here is teaching the code even when it's really advanced, and that's what this is for. We'll get into the forms of publication later. We have a couple of different options. The last one is The Science of Casino Blackjack by Richard Wertheimer. And this is something that we will be publishing on Wolfram Cloud. This is not his book. His book is actually published by Springer. So we're doing this in partnership with Springer, which is another thing that we'll touch upon. We do partnerships with other publishing entities, and we have favorable relations with most of them. So this is a very exciting thing, the Wolfram Cloud. Obviously, we made a huge leap forward in 2017, and next year we'll have another major release as well. So I'll show you that in a little bit. Well, actually, I guess I can show that to you right now. This hasn't been through our design or through our UX centers yet. This is literally just a sort of a sample of and Springer doesn't give anything like this, right? They're not even capable of this. You can download a notebook from the Springer site. So this is all really new to them and really exciting in the publishing world if we can get it to work well. So you've got a navigation bar here, and then some information about the chapter in which this is, and then you've got a working manipulate. This is a fairly simple one. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that you guys are going to be working with is a lot more complicated. This is something that is still in development, and we hope to see some exciting things next year as well. All right, and just to go through here, I'm not going to read them all, but you'll see there are a number of publications that we've chatted with people about that we find are very exciting, and you can see that we're looking at books that are very much subject related, but it has to be a book that's about the code and about the Wolfram language for us to publish it. We do have two different speeds of publishing as well. If we're printing a book, we're spending money to print it. We're putting real skin in the game. If we're publishing to print on Kindle, that we have a lot more flexibility with. And Barry Dayton's book, which is a highly complicated book about algebraic curves, fits more in the latter half. We're not printing his book. We are making what we call a print replica. That's Amazon speak for a fixed layout. Something that you take your iPad or your Amazon Fire, or your Kindle Fire, and you just page through, and it looks pretty good. Yes, I do. Yeah, I'll let him get out of here because I know he's got.
So, just want to make a point here that since I designed this template, I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. We originally designed this for Stephen to his specification for the EIWL book, and he felt like, okay, it's got to work with just short snippets of text and input after input, etc. But when I put it together, I always had in mind that it should just as well work for more full-body narrative, and that's what we're showing here. So I feel like it presents us with a decent example that other publishers can also be looking at as a potential model for how to do books based on Wolfram language being the primary illustration or the primary code and we're doing this in notebooks. I mean, we're showing it as a PDF, but that's because ultimately we have to transmit a PDF to the printer. So the kinds of effort it takes to properly page a book like this is something we can discuss if any of you are interested. But the point of signing up with Wolfram Media to do a project is that we kind of take care of that stuff, right? As long as you give us the notebooks in a decent form, then it's our job to page them and get the final production to get you to this point if that's what your content is like. Now, that said, it is still always our goal to find more content that's closer to the model Stephen has set with his.
So you're saying that you don't give us this template file?
Yeah, sure, yeah, we do.
Yep.
I mean, that's the book tool.
Yeah, just meet with me after. I will get your information. It's a simple installer file, and the nice thing about it is that we're constantly updating it. All you need to do is just rerun it periodically. You'll get the latest updates. It will take out the old palette and put in the new palette. I have a demonstration of it up here as well. All right, so in terms of how we publish, obviously print. This is something that I've had a lot of conversations with various authors since the conference started, and some people are very excited to still print books. Some people aren't all that interested in it. Some people want something that's completely free. Some people want something that's out there in the world that people can buy. We can print in color, and one of the reasons that we can do that is that a lot of our software, I don't need to tell you guys this, deals with color, and to not be able to print in color, you would lose a lot of what the message is. So it's not an issue for us. We're not doing it for every text, but for anybody who can make a pretty good appeal, I don't think that's really an issue. Publishing is not our primary objective here. Our primary objective here is showing the software in the best light. So that's certainly something we can talk about. I mentioned earlier that we do fixed layout EPUBs. For anybody who's read with a Kindle, you can usually flows the text every time you zoom in and whatnot. We don't do that in large part because it's not even images which are a problem. It's mostly math. It's mostly displaying code in a way that makes sense. So we don't do that. We do fixed layout PDFs. At some point, we might shift over. And certainly for other books, like we did Stephen's Idea Makers, that was in a standard EPUB file. So we are capable of it. We prefer the fixed layout because that way we can show things exactly the way we want to show them. So. We do also, in various circumstances, people can sell notebooks from the Wolfram store. We do have one author who supplements his coursework every year with notebooks that he runs specifically for his class, and he gets his class to get them. So that's something we support. Also, I'm sure you've all seen, I didn't actually preload it, but I'm sure you've all seen Stephen's book online. That's something that we are also offering. We haven't had an opportunity to do it yet, and so we might run into some issues there. But for the most part, it should be pretty easy to create that page and run with it. Obviously,
Well, when you say create that page, you're saying putting the book on the web, right?
yeah.
That is also one of the primary things we're interested in. I mean, the reason we want books under our imprint is to guarantee that they can go online, because we want people to find the knowledge that's in these books, and we want them to be Google tractors. Publishers don't want to do that. They want this stuff behind a paywall so that we pay them their money. We need to pay for the printing too. We want you to make money, but we feel like it's got to be in concert with the content being available.
Yeah, and the way we've done that in the past is we've had a delayed release sometimes for that. And that's the way it's worked in some of the contracts that we've worked on. But yeah, that is a real draw for people, is to have a site like Stephen does. So just some of the the publishing details. I don't know if you'd be really interested in this stuff. Our main distributor is Ingram. Ingram is the biggest distributor in the world. So we have a couple of others, and we certainly use Amazon because that is the way a lot of people access the market, obviously. But yeah, we have lots of different ways to access the market, and Ingram is probably, for print sales, the best way to do that. Moving on, so just to give you an idea of how the process works, Barry knows this because he's dealt with it for a long time. Usually the intake process starts with talking to me, either by email or by at the conference or what have you. Sometimes I get people from sales contact me saying, oh, this one of our clients really wants to write a book on blank. And that's how that conversation gets started. At that point, I'll solicit submission materials from you, and it will go through a technical review. One of the main things that we really want to highlight is that the state-of-the-art coding is happening on site here. And if we know something that you don't, we're going to want you to show that. And they're always, sometimes things like 11.2 offers some new things that are still kind of in process. So sometimes we won't use those things, sometimes we will. We're basically happy with the code if it works, but our technical reviewers will make it the best code that we can do. There will also be a scientific review. It's not an in-depth review. It's not like, publishing with Wood Springer where it would be go out to anonymous reviewers or anything. We use our internal staff. We have people in basically every aspect that you would be publishing in, so that's not a problem. In terms of production, this is all nitty-gritty stuff if you're interested or not. We generally have two sets of notebooks that we start with. There's the source notebook that you originally sent to us. We get that in the style that we want, and then we create the print source notebook. Obviously, books have very specific pages. We don't want to mess with things. You want every page to have the exact right material on it. One thing I wanted to caution anybody who's interested in submitting to us, that we do break things up a little bit. We like shorter blocks of code. We like one-liners too in terms of code. So that's one thing that we'll be doing with your print source notebooks, is that we'll be getting them really ready to publish on an actual page. And the main reason for that, even if we don't publish your book in print, and this is what we did with Barry's book, is that when we publish it to the Kindle, it will be a fixed layout as if it could be printed. And one of the nice things about Amazon is that you could simply if you want to buy a book and have it printed, they'll do it. They have print on demand that is a pretty decent quality. We're going to prep your best chapters first, and once they're in the best way that they can be, we'll do a final review and then offer a contract. So how do we promote our books? I'm sure you've probably seen some of our social media. We've got dozens of websites that do this. For Hands On Start, I interviewed the authors of the book, and we posted a blog on the Rye blog. Wolfram blog, excuse me. And we have Twitter accounts, we have LinkedIn accounts, Facebook accounts, we've got all that stuff. So, these are just some of the ways that we'll do it. One of the things that I'll be doing in production is I'll be researching the market for your book and trying to build a base where I can do that. We do have also a dozen mailing lists, which we may or may not use. Ingram also, you have to pay for these promotions, but they are generally successful. This is what they do, and they do it well, so we are willing to do that as well. And then, of course, industry-specific. You're all academics. You all go to conferences. If it's not something you want to deal with, just tell me. I'll get in touch with the conference producer and make sure your book is there. Generally, that's pretty easy to do. So, one thing that's written into every contract that we have is product updates. You guys know our software changes pretty quickly, so you'll want it to be updated, and we do too. That it might take a little bit of time to get things sorted, but that we are interested in doing that. We want your work to last. All right, so for a basic submission, get in contact with me. I would like a CV, a book proposal, and a table of contents, and 2 chapter notebooks. I would like a chapter notebook that has a code and has graphics. These are going to be the showpieces that we start with and that we try to get into good working order as quickly as possible. So one thing I get asked a lot is, do we accept Latex submissions? Latex submissions, we do not. It's more trouble than it's worth, and we're about publishing in notebooks. That's one of the main things that I do, is trying to push notebooks into the publishing world. So that's what we do, and that's what you'll have to submit as. So what are we interested in? Right now, we've got the market's pretty saturated with calculus notebooks. It isn't to say calculus books. It isn't to say we wouldn't, countenance it, but we are looking for things that show our code in different areas. Engineering and in social research. You've all heard so many of the great natural language things that we can do. So we really want to get that coding into the hands of people who wouldn't normally use it. So any book idea that you have that can focus on that is automatically going to receive a little bit more attention. Using the Wolfram language to make, I talked about the whole Maker Faire concepts earlier. This is a big deal right now, and it's really easy to use the Wolfram language to do that. So that's something that was going to really push things forward. One thing that I will say is that you have to make sure that your proposal is focusing on teaching the Wolfram language. The science is what we want to see how you do your science with the Wolfram language. So you're not hiding your code, you're showing your code. And to the extent that you have to change things around a little bit, that might be something that we would really push for. And we are flexible, but that's sort of what we're going for. So I did create a little... Right, so one of the things that I will send to you is the Wolfram Book Tools palette. This is what it looks like. And,
Actually, you've got a couple palettes on your screen, so you've got that.
yeah, I'll explain those.
There. Why don't you move that out of the way a little bit? What's under that? See, that's the real book tool.
Right, so this is the Wolfram Book Tools palette. And when you install it, and you start with another notebook, let's see. You would go to palette. I mean, you guys know this stuff, but once it's installed, it will automatically list down here as one of the options. That will bring up this, and then you click New Section. That's where you start your book. And unfortunately, at this point, if you've got your book already written, you're going to have to put it into this format. If you want to design a conversion tool, I am more than happy to distribute it. We haven't done it yet. We will, but it will take some time. So just to give you an idea of how this works, this tool this palette part is more to bring these things up and also to link. You can link between notebooks. We prefer that each chapter is its own notebook. That's how we'll be working on it, and we'll just break it apart if you don't. So might as well do it that way. You see under here, section, subsection. There is actually a subsection, and the button here isn't quite ready. Yep.
Are these recommendations in this file, and you're going to include this information somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. And what he's showing there, that's the primary navigation of this thing.
Yeah.
Insertions.
I just mean the best practices. You want chapters to be notebooks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about, if you've already got notebooks full of content, this is just a style sheet, and it's got a few styles that are uniquely named, but the rest of them are pretty consistently named. So if you just take that style sheet and apply it, you'll get halfway there.
Right, and there are a couple of sort of interesting things that we encourage you to explore and to think about. These are sort of textbook things that we used in EIWL, and they're great ways to end chapters as opposed to sort of banal summaries.
But we wouldn't say you only need to do exercise.
No, this is all text specific. If your book doesn't need it, then don't use it. You can also, if you wanted to say, have a reference section, you would literally just go in here and do your, so, and we're willing to be flexible about that. One thing that you can do is, so, that's a function, so that's not what was supposed to happen. Yeah. So then you go up here, you click the inline code. Yeah, it worked before. Anyways, it worked with this one. I think, you know what I think it is? It's just it made it the whole link instead of just plus, because I started at the end of the cell. Yeah. So.
Well, anyway, the folks here have seen all this kind of stuff. I've demoed this stuff for 25 years. So the main point is that we want you to try to deliver something as close as possible to what we are giving you some tools to do, but we're not, we can get you closer ourselves as well. And the staff are all capable of jumping right on stuff and pretty quickly. So obviously we care more about the content than how closely we form it into our spec. But the main point being that Stephen's book is what we regard as much of a model as anything. And if you can provide your content in that fashion, we're going to be more interested in that than if you're giving us a monograph that is kind of like something you would publish at academic press. We're less interested in that, and we're more interested in something that is very much like a code-based narrative.
Mm-hmm.
This is all very much in line with what you got out of Stephen's keynote, his thinking that Wolfram language almost speaks for itself half the time. You know, it's verbose, it's knowledge-based, it sort of, in a compact amount of information, produces a lot of results that are interesting. Let it be your voice, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to say.
So if I, sorry, I came in late, but if I want to apply this technology, is there like, sometimes I don't know, am I going to end up publishing or making a chapter or whatever? Is it better to start with, say, default?
Yeah, it's okay. It's really okay. I mean, to be honest, that's what I tried to get Stephen to do when we first started his book project. It's like, Stephen, you've got this default notebook style, this thing called notebooks, right, that we've been developing for 20-some years for people to write in. Go write in it, you know? But no, he's always got, but because he's got his whole staff around him, he can get whatever he wants. He said, I want a button that does this, I want a button that does that, give me this style, I'd like this to be tweaked a little bit, and I can't write a single word until you give me that stuff. And it's like, okay, fine, you know. So we did that, and we'd like to make more use of it than just to entertain him, of course. But that said, as long as you're structuring your content, you can do it, we can handle it, you know. It's as simple as that.
And have you got anybody offering sort of third party to take, because let's say someone had a tech manuscript and say, well, you know, I'm a third party, I'll convert that into notebooks for you and then submit it to, you know, some sort of agreement and go through.
That would be great. We don't have that come up too much, but we do have people ask how to get them in that. And we do is, you know, we've maintained a certain amount of tech import technology, and we're bringing, it kind of went by the wayside for a while. It still works, but, you know, as our language has evolved, there's certain things that haven't kept up. We're giving it another pass, but this time it's more about using tech to just render tech, you know, and insert that like a service into notebooks. But you know, there are folks who have enough expertise with notebook technology that they're providing just services to authors.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds to me like this one is a new template because it has subsection, this has no subsection.
Abe, I've had the subsection added since we spoke this morning.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Where are you getting the latest tools from there?
Oh, so I will send you the installer, and then you just reload the installer, you know, periodically, and it will.
Wouldn't it be a good idea in the, like other apps, inside the actual Wolfram Tools template, to have a button that says, you know, check when you've got the latest version, and if you haven't, to upload the latest version.
We have to do that. Again, it's one of the, why don't you show them the installer?
Yeah, sure.
If you look in his menus, like go to your palettes. What we do internally, you see that thing that says DocuTools
Oops, sorry.
installer?
Yeah, we're just not responding.
Okay. You clicked on DocuTools, which you have to. Open
Yeah.
DocuTools. I just wanted to show it. So that little thing there that says DocuTools installer, you know, I got tired of people always asking for this. You see this giant palette there, right? That's what we use for documenting everything that goes into the documentation system. And all of our developers are expected to use it. But, you know, we put information throughout the company where you can find this, and they just always call it instead. So I just got tired of it. And it's like, here's the and it installs it. And if you don't want it anymore, push the little button. And what it does, and what it does is it installs a copy of itself into your layout, and it's in your menu permanently. So it's kind of like, Paul, what you're saying, it's there. If you got to run an update, just go ahead and grab it. Now, what we do is we are now doing push notifications on DocuTools for people where it says your DocuTool seems to be out of date. I mean, Anton's worked with us in the past. He knows what it's like using this thing. We're evolving, right? We're getting there. And we're using cloud technology to do all of that, So, we're able to, this installer pulls down a cloud object and then installs it as a packlet into your system. And we're able to do that, and it bypasses my having to talk to our release engineering team to let me put something on the packlet server. Because I'm like, well, you can have it, but it's going to be 2 days. It's like, no, we need this right now. So my guys can code it in the cloud themselves and have it pulled down by anybody who has access to it. And that's anybody who gave the full palette. So that's how you'll get the book tools as well. Jeremy will send you that little installer, and there you go. Just run that and do it update. But yeah, you put the button in itself.
So let me channel Paul here. This is not color coded. It doesn't. The buttons may need to be colored.
I'm just using, we're using the operating
There's a
system.
big button there, but will explain. A big red button, for example.
Yeah, sure. And then when there's only 2 buttons, you get into a problem of, do you highlight it to show it's highlighted? Then which one's highlighted, right?
All right. Well, I don't have too much more, but one thing I will say is that part of my job, for those of you who are just publishing a book, is to help you interface with your publisher. So, if you have an editor, an acquisitions editor that wants you to submit in a certain way or is having a problem with how something is looking, you come talk to me, and I can get you the expertise to fix the problem for your publisher.
That does include potentially freelance production.
Yeah.
We do have people in the company, I don't know if Larry, who just came in, up for it, but we have people in the company who are expert enough with notebooks, Kyle's, and then there's another one, who could take on freelance jobs. And we've had people do that before. I used to do that in my early years in the company, doing work for publishers all the time on expensive projects.
So, I mean, I'm a little bit facetious here, but is it possible to do some Alexa service which kind of would do what the typical department would do with the document tools? Let's say Alexa, this notebook to that.
Alexa, publish my book.
But all that really would, it would probably go to some offshore thing or something.
Others said it's in the cloud, so maybe some of these functionalities can be put in the, maybe the point is you can cook it up if you really.
Yeah, it's all pretty doable, but as much as we want to do everything possible for the authors that are Wolfram language users, you're still a minority of our customer base, so you have to squeeze this stuff in between everything else you have to get done for our users.
For those of you who just are a little bit late, I just wanted to bring up the Wolfram Cloud example again. This has not been through our design team at all, or even the UX team. This is just something I put together, which impressed the hell out of Springer. So obviously what we'll do is a lot better than that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we have to do yet in the cloud, which is wrong here, you can see that those sentences run out too wide. We need a responsive mechanism for controlling line lengths in the cloud, and that doesn't come.
Yeah.
My introduction is trying to get faculty to develop curriculum materials that would be free to students, like the Canyon and all that stuff. So my question is, does any of that fit into what you guys do?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, so like I don't have it open, but let's go ahead and open Stephen's book.
While he does that, I'm going to shamelessly plug something that's about to happen at 4:30. Involves building curriculum using a bunch of tools like
Yeah, we also have the Wolfram U. I don't know if that would would be not part of your school's thing, but you could offer materials through the Wolfram U when that's officially launched.
Well, yeah, I mean, Barry, are you saying that we would do all the production work?
No, I was just, well, I didn't know what you do. I didn't know whether there's a value for Wolfram to put time and effort into something that is related to their core product.
Yeah, I guess it depends, actually. I mean, certainly, the cloud, if the university is a site, and they've got the cloud available, distributing stuff through the cloud, making it usable through the cloud is easier than trying to manage distribution of notebooks on everybody's machines, right? That's what we're hoping to achieve there. And so that's like a step in that direction.
But if you were to say just publish your book and we were to put it up on a site somewhat like this, that all that content would be free right there. One of the things that I looked at yesterday was somebody had purchased a private cloud license, and it actually put a fully manipulatable courseware tool together on his own private cloud. It doesn't handle all the manipulates as well as we'd like. It's still a work in progress in terms of speed, particularly anything that uses nsolve, or it's continuously recalculating along a curve. That's a little bit a strenuous use of the product, but for to simply change a number in an equation and then evaluate it, it does that. So that's not a problem.
As you wrap up, because I didn't get the chance to demo it earlier, I can show you.
Come on up, Andre.
Yes, if you guys are interested. Was there something else on the agenda?
I mean, we could talk about some typesetting tricks and all that, and this other palette, but I can, while Andre's walking up here, I will just show this other palette.
You guys know it better than you do, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about those.
So some of the new features in Wolfram language, the inclusion of external languages, how, I mean, if I bravely want to put there, say, Wolfram language, I don't know, with Python or R, like, I would expect some facilitation. This is my problem. Whatever language I choose, or notebook language, let's say R, I cannot write in R or in R notebooks or Marika versus R type of, article. With Marika, I can do it, but also dark mode is just, kind of seems added source. But in general, I mean, you might, because it is now, you can include, I heard from the keynote, that you can include other languages. Is that something you handle also in the styles?
Right, well, I guess you're kind of saying that why not put content out in the world that takes more advantage of other languages embedded that way, right?
I'm not so much into it. Well, actually, it would be nice to use it, but then I can, especially if I want to, like, for Marika, for example,
Yeah.
GitHub might understand hardcore when it does the color coding, but it doesn't understand what Marika. You need to actually especially put some tags or whatever, and then it starts to use some color scheme or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What is it? There's certain tricks, in some notebook technologies to make it say understand, Wolfram language. But so I was wondering, like, you might have already thought about it because, as I said in the keynote, there's all.
Yeah, I mean, we are certainly looking at that kind of thing. And just the point you raise about notebooks in general is something I was discussing earlier with folks today. Hold on, the resolution here.
That's not your normal laptop. I told them about a different laptop. Sorry.
Can I ask a question about the syntax coloring when you're using Wolfram book tools?
Yeah.
The input style is lost all of that.
Yeah, well, actually, so the first edition, that's what we wanted. The second edition does use some syntax coloring.
But not fully.
Right.
I mean, it was more or less an aesthetic choice that, if you compare, have you looked at the hands-on start book, Cliff's book?
I did know, I thought I did a while back, I'm not sure.
That, they left all the syntax coloring in. And we felt like, I mean, I think for the very beginner type of project, maybe that's all right. But it becomes a bit visually distracting, particularly in print. You know, when you're online on the screen,
Toggle it within when you're there, because I'm finding while I'm writing stuff in that
you want
template, I want it.
Well,
And
that's a
then
good
I'm
point.
happy for it to be turned off afterwards.
You're absolutely right, we can certainly do that. All right, so what I didn't get a chance to show earlier today was that, and I was gonna say about notebooks, and this is kind of relevant, that you mentioned, Python, and, there's Jupyter notebooks now, our notebooks exist. Notebooks are being understood as a thing 25, 30 years after we kind of brought them out. And we're, the other folks in the world using them, promoting them, are doing us a favor now, But we had avoided trying to promote our technology under the notebook banner for quite a while, using CDF instead, as hopefully that would be more like a meme that people could grab onto. But we kind of feel like now, well, maybe notebooks are fine, let's not maybe avoid that. And so the conversation will become a little bit more about notebooks being the standard thing and CDF being more about the enterprise conversation, that when you need a player that can do an enterprise level application, that's where CDF is more relevant as a term. But anyway, I just wanted to show that because the plugin has been disabled by all browsers, we need the cloud to service the way we use CDF in the past as a plugin. So these are the examples that are on our CDF website. We're in the middle of updating the ones we can with cloud CDF. So, here's an example of one of Eric's CDFs from his calculus book. And here's one of the Tolly's.
Are they available yet, or is that still not publicly available?
What's not public?
What you're showing, because, I mean, if you go to the...
If it was publicly available, I could have showed it this morning.
Well, that's right, I assumed that.
Yeah, it will be soon. We're working on it. But so, I'm making these changes happen in pretty good time. This is up through the cloud, So some of these can be really responsive and pretty decent. And Jeremy was showing Richard Wertheimer's project, which we were using as an example because he already has a publisher to kind of talk to the publisher and say, hey, use our cloud, use our cloud. This stuff is better looking than anything he's doing. And, it's reasonably responsive. And this stuff's all embedded directly in these web pages. This is all regular HTML around it. Similarly, we want to do the same thing for demonstrations. So Stephen showed the homepage. He didn't actually go to demonstrations, but, the idea is that we have the animated GIF overlay as a preview. We didn't quite get the sequencing done right here, but you saw that load happen, that blue line that went across. That was loading from the cloud. That should have been happening behind the animation, right? And so that when the animation is done, the thing is right there, ready to use. You're ready to play with it. It's still getting polished. You saw it jump a little bit because the animation and the image, the cloud thing didn't match perfectly. But this is a demonstration with a live manipulate in it because it's served by our web servers. But if you want to, download it, you've got a big button to do that. Or if you want to access it in the cloud, you can open it in your cloud account. You've got these choices here. And what you see here, these choices, download or open it in the cloud, is what we're going to do for everything people deploy as CDF or notebooks on the web, right? So, you can go to it, you can interact with it, okay, maybe 10 times, 20 times, we haven't quite decided what that threshold is. But for that document, for that user, at that point, okay, that's enough. Now you got to download it or you got to go into your cloud account. that'll work, you know, that'll be a pretty reasonable experience for everybody.
So, probably if I use same tooltip, open the tooltip, this means it's going to go to the cloud, or the tooltip is going to be, the tips for the tooltip are going to be ordered in the browser already.
Well, I don't quite know what the distinction is you're making. I mean, our cloud does do tooltips, and
Yeah, but basically in a sense, I do need the connect my phone. It's not a standalone type of HTML or whatever.
not quite so much. I mean, it is a JavaScript. I mean, we are translating everything from the notebook into HTML/CSS/JavaScript on the fly.
Right.
You know, but is it part of the DOM, right? Is it part of the document object model of the whole web page?
Right.
No, because it's iframe, right? It's its own thing. So, you know, if you want Google to find that tooltip on that web page where it's embedded, that's not there.
Right.
You know? But you know, you can make up for it in other ways. And yes, if you're like pulling data, like if the embedded object in that web page is wanting to refresh itself based on data that's changing somewhere, it's your cloud, the notebook that is hosted in your cloud account has to have access to that data, but it can't. You know, it can connect to a database or whatever you've got configured. It's just being exposed, you know, through this other web page as an iframe thing, but it's running on our servers. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. I'm really happy to have been able to show it to a handful of people because I couldn't show it earlier this morning. So, all right. I don't know if there was more for us to cover. Or
I think our time is basically up if anybody has any other questions. I have cards here. If you don't know how to get in touch with me already, I think most of you do, but anybody who wants one can have them. Thank you.